Welcome back, everybody, to the Deep Dive. This time, we're going to be looking at a company that a lot of people now think of as one of the most important tech companies in the world. But their journey to the top wasn't exactly, a straight line. We're talking about Nvidia, a company that has not just overcome some major hurdles in its history, but also it seems like they've managed to turn every obstacle into an advantage.
Yeah, and I think that's what makes NVIDIA's story so fascinating. They've navigated not just the technological shifts, but like the business challenges of being a pioneer, right? So they've had to be incredibly nimble and willing to make some bold moves just to stay ahead of the curve.
Yeah, and right from the start, in the 1990s, they were diving headfirst into this incredibly competitive graphics chip market.
Yeah.
And their first product, the NV1, it was really like a testament to their innovative spirit. But it also highlights a critical lesson that a lot of tech companies have to learn, especially startups, and they learn it the hard way.
Yeah, the NV1 was groundbreaking,
Yeah.
in its approach to 3D rendering. But the problem was it really wasn't compatible with most of the popular games at the time. NVIDIA was so focused on making this cutting-edge technology that they didn't really, fully consider what the existing market looked like.
That's almost like building a rocket ship when everyone else is still riding horses.
Yeah, exactly. And for NVIDIA, it almost destroyed them. They were spending a ton of money and the future was, pretty uncertain. But instead of being stubborn and sticking to their initial idea, they made this huge decision.
They went with Direct 3D, which was, of course, Microsoft's big push for their new operating system, Windows 95. This was a stroke of genius. I mean, in retrospect, right?
Oh, it was brilliant. Microsoft was putting a lot of their weight behind Direct 3D. And for NVIDIA, adopting this new standard, it really opened up this massive new market of PC gamers almost overnight. And they were really able to leverage the rising tide of Windows 95 success to kind of propel themselves forward.
And that led to the Riviera series, which was a huge success. It put them back on the map. Talk about a comeback story.
It's a classic example of how adaptability can be the key to survival in the tech world. They showed they were willing to learn, adjust, and even abandon that original plan when necessary. That kind of flexibility, it's so crucial, especially in an industry that changes as quickly as the tech world does.
And speaking of rapid evolution, the dot-com bubble burst of the early 2000s was another huge test for them. I mean, the entire tech sector was really struggling, and NVIDIA's stock, it plummeted.
Yeah, and, a lot of companies would have just tried to play it safe during those times because it was so uncertain. But NVIDIA just doubled down on what they did best, innovation.
They launched the GeForce 256, and they branded it as, the world's first GPU. That seems incredibly risky during a market crash. Why would they do that?
It was a bold move, but it was calculated. They recognized that gaming was becoming more and more popular, and they were determined to be the leaders in that trend. So they focused on what made their GPU stand out, their performance for gaming and 3D rendering.
So while everybody else was panicking, they were basically saying, we're going to make the best graphics cards for the future of gaming.
Precisely. They saw the dot-com crash as a chance to really solidify their place in this growing market. And, once everything calmed down, it became clear that it worked.
But it wasn't just market forces that they had to deal with. Nvidia also faced a pretty big legal challenge in the late 1990s from their rival, 3DFX. It was over patent infringement. And lawsuits can be incredibly distracting and expensive, right? Especially for a company that's still trying to grow.
Oh, absolutely. They can be so draining financially and you just lose focus. But what's really impressive is that they didn't let the lawsuit stop them from innovating.
And then, in a move that seems like it's straight out of a movie, Nvidia ended up buying 3DFX's assets in 2000. So they literally turned their competitor into an advantage for themselves.
Talk about turning lemons into lemonade, right?
Yeah.
That acquisition gave them all this valuable intellectual property and, further cemented their position in the market. It was a brilliant move that showed how resilient and strategic they were.
So they made it through the dot-com crash, and then they came out of this major lawsuit even stronger. It seems like Nvidia has a real knack for turning adversity to their advantage.
Yeah, it's really remarkable, their ability to not just survive, but to thrive when facing challenges. It, I think, really points to a company culture that embraces risk and sees obstacles as opportunities for growth.
And then, just when it seemed like things were finally calming down, the 2008 financial crisis hit. This time, they were dealing with a global recession. And on top of that, they had to do this very expensive recall because some of their chips were defective.
It was a double whammy that honestly could have destroyed them. Their stock price absolutely tanked, and the pressure was immense. But yet again, Nvidia found a way to, adapt and innovate to get themselves out of the crisis.
So how did they manage to get out of this one? They'd already proven they were adaptable and innovative, so what was their next move?
This time, it was diversification. They realized that only relying on the gaming market, especially with everything going on in the world, was risky. So they entered new markets, like high-performance computing and professional visualization.
So instead of putting all their eggs in one basket, they, spread them out.
Exactly. And this diversification is what led to the development of CUDA, their Compute Unified Device Architecture. And CUDA was a total game changer because it allowed their GPUs to be used for way more than just gaming.
So CUDA basically opened up all these possibilities, setting the stage for their future success in these new markets like scientific computing and even AI.
That's right. It wasn't just about fancy graphics anymore. CUDA allowed all these researchers and developers to use the massive processing power of their GPUs for really, really complicated tasks.
So by diversifying and creating these groundbreaking technologies like CUDA, they not only made it through the 2008 crisis, but they actually came out of it stronger and even more versatile than they were before.
Yeah.
It seems like every challenge they faced only pushed them further ahead.
And that brings us to the next chapter of their story, the big move into AI and data centers. But we're going to save that for part 2 of our deep dive.
Welcome back to the deep dive. So last time, we talked about Nvidia making it through the 2008 financial crisis and that groundbreaking development of CUDA, which opened up their technology to a whole new world of possibilities. And this is really the era where people started to see them as more than just a gaming company.
Absolutely. The 2010s, that's when NVIDIA really shifted towards AI and data centers. But, this move, it wasn't immediately embraced. In fact, a lot of industry analysts and investors were pretty skeptical.
Why all the doubt, though? They had already shown, that they were innovators, and they had made it through some really tough times.
I think a lot of people just saw them as a gaming company. It was hard to picture them as this major player in, AI and data centers, especially going up against giants like Intel and AMD. It's tough to break out of that box that everyone puts you in.
It's like trying to convince people that a rock band can also play classical music.
Exactly. But NVIDIA and, Jensen Huang, their CEO, they had a vision. They saw the potential of AI and they were determined to be a part of it. And of course, they had a secret weapon, their GPUs, which turned out to be perfectly suited for the demands of AI, especially deep learning.
So instead of backing down from the challenge, they just went all in. They invested heavily in research. They partnered with other companies. They were making a big bet on the future of AI.
And man, did it pay off. As AI research just exploded, the demand for their GPUs just skyrocketed. They became the go-to solution for everyone, from university labs to major tech companies doing cutting-edge AI work.
So what were some of the early signs that this AI pivot was going to work? Were there specific things like breakthroughs or partnerships that kind of showed them this was the right move?
One big one was their success in partnering with cloud providers like Amazon Web Services and Microsoft Azure. These partnerships gave them access to massive amounts of infrastructure, and it meant that developers all over the world could easily use their GPUs for AI development.
So they weren't just building the hardware, they were also building this whole ecosystem for AI to grow in.
Exactly. And then there were all these breakthroughs in deep learning, right? Researchers were getting amazing results using NVIDIA GPUs for things like image recognition, understanding language, even generating realistic human faces. It was becoming clear that NVIDIA wasn't just part of the AI revolution, they were one of the leaders.
And of course, there's the impact on self-driving cars.
Yeah.
NVIDIA's GPUs became the brains behind a lot of the autonomous driving systems being developed by companies like Tesla and Waymo.
Right. Their high-performance computing capabilities, combined with their expertise in computer vision, it just made them perfect for the challenges of autonomous driving. NVIDIA's technology was literally helping to shape the future of how we get around.
But even with all this success, they never stopped innovating.
Yeah.
They kept pushing the boundaries of graphics technology, and that led to, RTX ray tracing. That's got to be another one of the major milestones in NVIDIA's story.
Oh yeah, RTX ray tracing, it completely changed the world of computer graphics. It brought real-time ray tracing into the mainstream, which means incredibly realistic lighting, shadows, reflections in video games, and all these other graphics-heavy applications.
For those of us who aren't, graphics experts, what exactly is ray tracing? Why is it such a big deal?
Imagine you're looking at a scene in a video game. With traditional methods, the light and shadows, they're kind of pre-calculated. They don't really interact with the environment naturally. But ray tracing, it simulates how light actually behaves in the real world. It calculates the path of individual light rays as they bounce off of objects, creating really accurate reflections, refractions, shadows.
So it's like the difference between looking at a painting of a place and actually being in that place.
That's a great way to put it. Ray tracing brings a level of depth and realism and immersion that you just couldn't get before. And Nvidia was really crucial in making that technology available to everyone.
But I'm guessing it takes a ton of processing power to make that happen in real time.
Oh, it does. Ray tracing is super computationally demanding. But Nvidia, they stepped up to the challenge. They built specialized hardware called RT cores that are specifically designed to handle the complex math involved in ray tracing. They really committed to making it work.
They didn't just create the technology, they created the hardware to make it possible. That's thinking ahead.
Exactly. And RTX ray tracing has had a huge impact, not just on games, but on other fields too. It's being used for things like architecture, product design, even filmmaking, to create these amazingly realistic images and animations.
So they were succeeding in AI, they were revolutionizing computer graphics, and it doesn't seem like they were slowing down. What else were they exploring during this time?
Well, their GPUs weren't just for gaming and AI anymore. They were becoming really important for scientific research, healthcare, designing cars, even space exploration. Their high-performance computing, it was helping scientists analyze tons of data, develop new drugs, design safer cars, even explore space.
It's amazing to think about how far their technology has reached. They started out making graphics cards for gamers. And now it's helping to make breakthroughs in all these fields that affect everyone.
And that's what's so great about innovation, right? It starts in one place and spreads out, affecting all these other industries, creating all these new possibilities. And Nvidia, with their willingness to take risks and their commitment to research, they've been a big part of that.
It seems like they were always looking ahead, trying to figure out what the next big thing in technology was going to be. So what was next for them?
Well, as we got into the 2020s, there was this new term everyone was talking about, the metaverse. And once again, Nvidia was ready to jump in. But we'll save that story for part 3 of our deep dive.
Welcome back to the deep dive. So we've been on this journey with Nvidia, from their humble beginnings to now being this major force in the tech world. We've seen how they've pushed boundaries, taken on new technology, and really turned challenges into wins. And now, as we get into the 2020s, there's this whole new world opening up.
The metaverse.
Yeah, the metaverse.
Yeah.
This idea of all these virtual worlds connected together, it's really captured people's attention. And Nvidia, with their background in graphics, AI, and high-performance computing, they're in a great spot to be a leader in this new space.
It seems like they've always had this knack for being right at the front of these big tech shifts. But what are they actually doing in the metaverse? What's their vision for it? It's more than just, making cool gaming experiences, although that's definitely a part of it. They see the metaverse as this platform for collaboration and creativity and innovation. And not just for gaming. Think about architects designing buildings in virtual reality, engineers testing prototypes and simulations, surgeons practicing complex procedures virtually. NVIDIA's building the tools and platforms to make all of that possible.
So it's not just about escaping into these virtual worlds. It's about using those worlds to solve real-world problems.
Yeah.
And push the limits of what we can do.
Exactly. And NVIDIA is a big part of building the infrastructure that will make all of this happen. They created things like Omniverse, which is a platform that lets creators and developers from all these different fields work together in shared virtual spaces. They can use tools and workflows from all sorts of software all in one place.
That sounds like it could totally change how things work in industries that rely on complex design and collaboration, like architecture, manufacturing, filmmaking. But building the metaverse, that's got to be a massive undertaking. What are some of the technical challenges they're up against?
Well, one of the biggest ones is making these virtual worlds look amazing, but also making them run smoothly. Realistic graphics, complex physics, supporting tons of users all at the same time. That takes a lot of processing power.
So they're basically pushing the limits of what their own technology can do.
Oh, yeah, for sure. But they're not just throwing more processing power at it. They're also developing new algorithms and techniques to optimize rendering, reduce lag, and just make those virtual experiences more immersive and responsive.
Sounds like the perfect mix of challenges and opportunities. And it seems like NVIDIA really thrives in those kinds of situations.
They do. And it's their willingness to take risks, invest in research, and work with partners across all these different industries that's a big part of why they're successful.
But let's take a step back for a second. We've talked a lot about the tech stuff, but what about the people? What's the, secret sauce that's allowed them to keep innovating and stay ahead for over 30 years?
I think it boils down to a culture of innovation. And that comes from a real belief in the power of technology to change the world. And it starts at the top with their CEO, Jensen Huang.
We've mentioned him a few times. What's he like as a leader? How has he shaped Nvidia?
Jensen Huang, he's a visionary, he gets technology, and he gets business. He's known for thinking long-term, seeing trends before they happen, and just always pushing for research and development.
So he's not just the captain of the ship, he's also the one mapping out the course.
Exactly. And he's created a culture where employees are encouraged to try new things, take risks, push the limits. That kind of culture, it attracts the best people, and it's been huge for NVIDIA's success.
It's not enough to just have a great idea. You need to create an environment where those ideas can actually happen.
Right. And that's something NVIDIA does really well. They've created this culture that embraces curiosity, collaboration, and rewards people who think big.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into Nvidia, what are the big takeaways for our listeners? What can we learn from their journey?
I think the biggest lesson is that to succeed in tech, and maybe in any field, you got to constantly innovate, be willing to change, and really understand both the potential and the challenges that are out there.
Nvidia's story is a testament to what people can do and the power of technology to transform the world. They've shown that anything's possible if you have the vision, the courage, and the will to push those boundaries and explore what the future could be.
And their journey's not over. As the metaverse grows, as AI keeps evolving, and as new tech comes along, I think we can be sure that NVIDIA will be there, pushing those boundaries, shaping the future, and showing us that the real learning happens when you push yourself to the edge.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the amazing world of NVIDIA. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep pushing your own boundaries.